Vice, an intellectual sanctuary for the mentally superior. In short, utopia. A site where pop culture and internet trends are analyzed and explained for us, the plebeian audience, through the nearly divine benevolence of journalist writers. And without Vice, what could the world possibly be but barren, cold, and void of life? No, wrong. Vice actually has some pretty nuclear bad takes, and today I want to analyze a fundamentally flawed premise recently posted to their gaming section because it is so ass-backwards it hurts my brain. The article is called How Games Marketing Invented Toxic Gamer Culture, How Early Marketing Campaigns for Online Gaming Platforms Suggested Toxicity Isn't a Bug, It's a Feature. This is a topic I've touched on before. I've done segments that analyze the myth of toxic gamer entitlement, how the social construct of toxic gamer culture is not an enduring reality, but more so a weaponized string of buzzwords designed to shame dissenting opinions, and a host of other videos that address the ongoing feud between gaming media and the very audience that they endeavor to feed off of. The article takes a very clear position. Microsoft and Sony are hypocritical within their current marketing material because their previous advertising helped create the current version of toxic gamer culture that is perceived by Vice today. Even the title goes so far as to say invented, which insinuates that the genesis of this entire concept is the marketing campaigns undertaken by Sony and Microsoft in the lead up to the 2000s. The article is filled with very poignant examples of trash talk being used in advertising material. It must be acknowledged that on the basis of hypocrisy, this article makes a very strong case. If the angle had been to prove and underline exactly why Sony and Microsoft are hypocritical marketing opportunists, only utilizing sensitivity culture now as a gimmick while their stance many years ago had been the exact opposite, it would be entirely reasonable and ultimately quite true. However, the point of the article is not to emphasize hypocrisy, it is to claim causality and assert that Microsoft and Sony are responsible for creating toxic gamer culture, that they invented it, if not in full, then at least partially. And that concept is not only untrue, owing to the fact that toxic gamer culture is simply a dishonest moniker for natural competitive frustration present in any competitive environment, but more on that later on. It is also built on a hilariously twisted premise that assumes corporate marketing pioneers trends instead of merely capitalizing on those that exist already. Now, there is an argument to be made that marketing can, on rare occasions, pioneer trends or greatly increase their social proliferation, but the default for a standard corporate marketing campaign is to do what is known and to do what works, or cater to perceived trends that are predicted to be successful at selling more products. There are a number of different quotes within this article that feel glaringly out of place in the fabric of today's social world. Now, hopefully YouTube's new emphasis on automated moderation won't screw me over here, but I will read what is probably the most extreme quote from the article for reference. Context is important in today's world. I shouldn't have to say this, but I will anyways. This is not me saying these things. This is me quoting an article, which in turn is quoting marketing material from almost 20 years ago. I stuck a cat in your rocket, you back-ass Tuscaloosa cracker. He's in there chewing your mice, but you probably eat mice yourself when you run out of possum, you monster truck-loving, buck-toothed hillbilly, and you other two mentally challenged dopes. Hang up, I won. This seems ludicrous in today's day and age as officially approved corporate marketing to increase a platform's player base. But just because something is shocking after it has been ripped out of its surrounding social context does not mean it caused or invented the problems of today. A somewhat imperfect example, but an example that highlights very well how dramatically times have shifted even just in very recent years, is The Office. The Office is a very popular TV comedy series about an average American workplace. It's not really average, most of the stuff that happens is totally absurd, but it's projected as average for the premise of it being a documentary, at least that's kind of the emphasis that you get. The show has many episodes that make light of topics that would be considered under today's standards to be totally off limits. There is an episode about outing a homosexual coworker. There are insults thrown that nowadays could and are, in certain circumstances, classified as hate crimes, and one of the most notable and ultimately well-liked characters is quite frequently making references to ideological roots that are becoming increasingly unacceptable to discuss or even joke about. Bottom line, when rewatching the show, there are many moments where certain lines conjure up an atmosphere of, wow, if that were to come out today in a brand new show, it would get absolutely crucified. The connection here is that the show did not come out to push that type of behavior. It did not come out to create more people with abrasive humor. It simply existed in an atmosphere where that was the acceptable norm. People did not watch the show and finish an episode with the desire to go do more of all the things that were somewhat edgy. They just got some laughs and continued about their day. Likewise, marketing produced by Sony and Microsoft was not made to push the idea that you should go be hateful on the internet. It was conceptualized in a time period where that was just considered normal, and using it as a promotion was likely to increase their audience. Making a pivot away from cause and effect, however, I want to discuss the idea of a competitive atmosphere. Anyone who has played sports in practically any capacity will know this. On the field, things can get heated. This is a completely natural product of pitting yourself against other human beings with a clear winner and loser. It's a reality that carries over into gaming, and for the most part, I won't sit here and pretend there aren't instances that cross over the line. For the most part, it occurs in a vacuum and is not meant to be anything other than vented frustration. In fact, both sides are typically aware of this. 15 or 20 years ago, that was known very well by both the gaming community at large and the players who occupied platforms such as PlayStation and Xbox, projecting these platforms as being conducive to an inevitable type of behavior that many gamers fully understood quite well, was marketing made to appeal to an effective audience. Now, to be 100% fair here, the article in concept gains massive credibility by acknowledging this at one point. Quote, "Of course, all of this suggests a fundamental chicken or egg problem. Did companies like Sega, Microsoft, or Sony identify a population of hyper-competitive, angry gamers and market their online services toward them? Or did the marketing of these platforms model an acutely toxic mode of interaction that gamers then seized upon and imitated? The likely answer is that the two are mutually reinforcing. The toxic marketing campaigns wouldn't have existed without the audience, but that doesn't mean the ads didn't continue to shape that audience once they were out in the wild." This is very, very true, and again, I would even salute the article as impressive had the primary purpose been to highlight hypocrisy, where once major platforms created ads about trash talk, now they encourage everyone to live in harmony and sing kumbaya and be kind. But when the title quite literally claims an invention of toxic gamer culture, it undermines that credit. The truth is that toxic gamer culture does not exist. It is merely a polarized method of saying natural competitive outbursts. Sony and Microsoft did not make a sharp turn towards encouraging sensitivity in online environments to pioneer a new norm of social interaction. They did it because the backlash against anyone being mean to one another picked up so much momentum, it became damaging to their quarterly earnings reports if they ran against it. This part is total speculation, so keep that in mind, but I would assert that player-based metrics would not change even if they went back to the opposite extreme of marketing directly to the trash talkers. If the player counts did change, it would be minimal, at least in particular games, because the people getting most upset that something offensive was said in the heat of the moment for one time to someone you never have to speak to again in your entire life on the internet, usually those aren't the ones playing the most video games, or if they do, they just play stuff that caters to their interest in a better way, which is plenty of titles. There is definitely no shortage. Another totally unrelated angle is opt-in socialization and natural anonymity. Players can run by whatever tag they choose. They can use that tag to project any identity they want to. Like, I can run as cis white asshole if I feel the need, but you have a built-in layer of protection against anyone knowing details about who you are as a person. The goal of trash talk is more often than not to get under the opponent's skin. There is data to support the notion that trash talk is very effective at pushing opponents off their game, thus benefiting you. As a result, it is going to be used by many players in any competitive environment. If you push through all the different layers and make larger aspects of your personal identity known in online competitive environments, that is when players will pinpoint in on what is most effectively going to make you upset and give them an actual tangible advantage. This is becoming a tangent kind of, so I have to turn back to the main point, but the idea that major gaming platforms invented toxic gamer culture is absurd. They did not invent competitive nature, they did not invent human emotion, and they did not invent the natural combination of these two things which results in widespread head-to-head trash talk, exemplified in dozens of other industries, just because they initially marketed to that demographic, which, to be fair, in the early days of video game culture, highly competitive players were pretty much the only audience paying attention to certain games. Gaming media, by and large, are the true mastermind behind toxic gamer culture because they have simply renamed a natural and widespread phenomenon while seeking an alternative cause that cannot truly be found because ultimately it does not exist. Vice has fed into this by highlighting well-deserved hypocrisy, but then pushing further into a claim that it is more than typical marketing and had a tangible impact on creating a phenomenon that really doesn't exist in any special capacity within gaming, and is more of a boogeyman used to condemn gamers for whatever flavor is relevant on that particular day. Bottom line, gaming has me versus you scenarios. It is competitive, us versus them. That type of stuff does exist there. In the day and age of participation medals, yeah, it's going to be jarring for some people to play in an environment where getting inside the opponent's head and talking trash gives them a tangible, actual, really measurable advantage. But that does not mean that it is unnatural or invented by decades-old marketing that depicted people being abrasively competitive. That's it for today. As a very disconnected side note, yes, I have seen the critical review of my Doom coverage. That's part of the territory when it comes to online critique of honestly anything, really. And as of right now, I don't have plans to respond with a dedicated segment. That will probably change once I have sorted through my backlog of projects, which are on my table right now. For instance, remember Regal Reserve? Yeah, they just shut down completely. The org is just gone, and that's about 10 times higher on my priority list to work on. But secondary to that, a lot of the critical points about my coverage were true. I have some gripes, like for instance, the guy criticizing sounds like a teenager. I'm pretty sure he is, though I don't know for a fact, and thus zeroing in on my videos being longer than 10 minutes for the purpose of monetization when nearly all of his own are as well, and he probably has no grasp of fiscal responsibility in the same way, is pretty irrelevant. But the pivotal issues about how review flaws and bad reaction to most of it on my part were really less than ideal, well, that's just flat out true. So what am I if I cannot take my own advice and adapt to criticism? That really is it though. We also have discounted merch because of a special event with Agent Inc., one of our sponsors right now, with another 15% off using code UE15%. And those will be up, I think, another week. Plus all the normal links down below, but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching and have a nice night.